Good evening. Welcome to our third night of candidate interviews. It's been pretty exciting so far, I have to say. We're pleasantly surprised by how well they have been going off. I think, pat ourselves on the back. We look like we're actually pretty professional at what we're doing here, but we're still amateurs, so please bear that in mind as we go through. Like I said, previous nights. I'll go through it, kind of introduce Maurice real quick. The four loaded questions I have for him, he has received in advance, just so everybody knows. It's, you know what I mean. That way we don't want to just have him off the cuff start asking questions and kind of scrambling. He's given the opportunity to kind of review and think about what he's going to say in those four questions. After that, we seem to be going into a Q&A with all of the audience, and then at some point after that, I'll ask him, give me three good reasons why I should vote for him. And after that, we seem to be going into an open discussion for longer. However, you know what I mean, we do have another Nathaniel at 7, so it's all going to get wrapped up in an hour no matter what we do. So Maurice White is next. He's running for Ward 2 Supervisor. He is heavily on Facebook at Maurice White. Type it in, you'll find him there. And Maurice, please tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks, Paul, for that introduction. I really appreciate the effort that the Central Committee has had to come up with, with the change of direction, with the all of a sudden we can't meet in public. Really appreciate the community's patience. I realize that there's quite a number of our folks that really, to be honest with you, aren't interested in doing a meeting this way. So I really appreciate everybody's participation. So Carson City is my hometown. I've been here my entire life outside of going to high school down in Gardnerville, and then I went to Phoenix to go to trade school. So as soon as I got out of trade school, I came right back to Carson City. I've been here my whole life. I raised my two kids here. My two children have found other places to be. My son specifically is on the East Coast. He followed his wife out there after he got out of the Army. My career has been in the diesel mechanic field. I've worked in on-road and off-road transportation. I worked in the construction and agrarian fields. I've had jobs all the way from just the entry-level guy to jobs that held a lot of responsibility. The last mechanic job that I held, I was a department manager for a company that was supplying engines internationally, primarily over into Asia and South and Central America and the East Coast here in the United States. I had that 40-year career. I continued my education all the way through that. I had every available ASE certification to truck mechanics. I held probably about half of the ASE certifications available to automotive and pickup mechanics. And I have a stack of certifications and accreditations that I collected throughout my career. That's pretty much what my career opportunities were for me. And now that I'm retired and I don't have a job and my kids are somewhere else, I have the time and I have the inclination to get involved with our city government and try to do good things for our community. That's what I'm doing here.
Okay, thank you. When you were elected, how are you going to deal with the revenue shortfall due to the coronavirus crisis? And what's next after the current cuts that have been made so far?
So, before the governor came out with his $687 or so million requested budget cuts, I sent off a communication to our mayor. with some ideas that I had for budget cuts. Now, I'm no genius in this department, but it seemed pretty obvious to me that if revenues were going to stop, spending had to stop. And I felt like they had to stop pretty quickly. So I wanted to share with the mayor a few of my ideas. One of those ideas was I asked the mayor to reevaluate the capital improvement projects that were going on that were not tied directly to health and safety issues. The Board of Supervisors subsequently found a little over $900,000 in projects that they could postpone. I also asked the mayor to freeze the 11 newly approved full-time positions, as well as wage and benefits that will be coming online in just the next few months. Additionally, I asked the mayor where it's appropriate if they could postpone a recently approved also $2.5 million in vehicle and equipment purchases. So I think what we need to do, especially in the long term, but right now we need to be looking at those health and safety items, keep maintaining those health and safety items that our businesses, our residents, and our visitors expect. I want to work on keeping our beautiful park system as intact as possible. Unfortunately, everything has to be on the table. I'm not willing to sign up for a sacrificial lamb or sacred cow or anything of that nature right now. We just have to look everywhere for what we need to be doing. I do realize, though, that cutting our quality of life efforts, like reaching into the parks, is something that is not going to make us popular. So what's next? I don't know. And just like everybody else, nobody knows what's next. And the reason for that is there are no facts to go on yet. There will be very shortly, in just the next week or week and a half. But this current issue, without having any facts to go on, staff has been out interacting with the different businesses, trying to get a feel for what they have going on. Staff is well educated. They're experts in their budgeting. They're experts in running their departments. And so they have been making educated projections. That's how they came to all of those cuts and the idea of how the consolidated tax category is going to be affected. And in fact, the staff has made projections out through 2020 right now. The Board of Supervisors has asked for monthly updates so that they can make adjustments when they need to. Going forward, we are going to have to be very nimble while we collaborate with all of the stakeholders in this deal. And I see this situation pretty much just like life. We are going to need to make a series of adjustments. This isn't going to be one fell swoop. Wow, we've got it all fixed up. We're ready to go. This is going to be an ongoing process. It's going to be a process that is at times going to be viewed as harsh. It's going to be unpopular. And I can tell you, I'm up for the work and I'm ready for the criticism.
Thank you. How do you feel about the economic development to build and support local businesses and visitors to Carson City?
So everything I've been able to glean out of all these years of doing the studying and the reading and going to NNDA breakfast, it seems to me that building codes and city ordinances have to give property owners, business owners, and residents a sense of stability and fair play. I think if we concentrate on the required health and safety items, we will have a climate that creates vibrant economic development. Health and safety items attract families. Business owners are generally family people. And where families go, businesses will follow. When you listen to the folks at NNDA and EDON and the other economic development outfits around, you find that element always comes up. Without getting into the minutia of what actually creates those elements, there's some things that families really look for when they want to move to a community. And again, when families come to a community, the businesses will follow. So what they're looking for is a clean city. They're looking for plenty of doctors, good education, good parks, good streets, good recreation, and a highly functioning sheriff and fire departments. So, like our mayor has been saying for a long time, we need to keep Carson City a place where people want to live, work, and play. That's how we get good economic development in Carson City.
Thank you. How do you want to make an impact or difference while serving the Carson City residents?
So I am looking forward to collaborating with the other supervisors, with staff, and with the community to get the asset management program fully functioning and fully funded. From my perspective, of a real wide range of experiences and responsibilities, I bring those to the board, to this community, and I think that's a valuable addition to our city government. I want to be in a position to help set reasonable priorities that will properly care for our tax money expenditures. And with that, I'm interested in several of the boards, commissions, and committees seats that will be available in January, shortly after the election. Now, these boards, committees, and commissions are a place where a supervisor has an opportunity to spread their sphere of influence pretty far and wide. And I would be interested in getting involved with the Parks and Rec Commission, the Regional Transportation Commission, the Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District, the Redevelopment Authority, the various lobby groups that the Board of Supervisors participates with, including finding a way to have some influence with the two contracted lobbyist companies that the Board of Supervisors works with. I'm really interested in getting to work on the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. Right now we have a person on that board, Shelley Aldine. She is highly qualified. She is very effective, and she is well thought of by the people that she works with. And so at this point, I would advocate that the city hold tightly onto her so that she doesn't get away. I want to tap that resource so that when she does finally come to a decision that she wants to leave, I can be fairly prepared and knowledgeable about what she's been doing so I can step into that seat. But I will tell you that the first few times that she tries to retire, I am going to relentlessly hound her to stay on board, because I think she's doing the kind of job that we really need to have done up there at the TRPA.
Now's our little dream question. Lori kind of let me down. She was all realistic about homeless people, but okay. If you could do anything, irregardless of money, what would be your signature project for the city?
That's really simple, really simple. It's the health and safety issues have to be number one. And we get there through the asset management plan. The asset management plan, by its very nature, will encompass nearly every element of our local government. It won't just identify work that needs to be done. It will inform us of things as far as like employee numbers, administrative actions like when to schedule a project, how to fund the project. It will do things even in the realm of letting us know when we are getting to a point where we have to do IT upgrades. The attribute list of this asset management program are many. In fact, I think there's more items on this asset management plan than there is on the bad road list. This is something that I have advocated for years to do. I never did it in this terminology. I always did it in a more negative approach. Why isn't this done? Why isn't that done? Well, I don't think that's appropriate any longer because staff is well aware of the issue and they're working on it along with the community and the Board of Supervisors. They have done a ton of work on this asset management plan. I don't want to take credit for the work that's already been done, but I do want to help get it fully functional and fully funded and get the priorities really well established so that we're taking care of our tax monies. We're taking care of the assets that we've purchased with the tax monies. I think that's what I want to be my signature accomplishment, because that's what I did throughout my career. More than one program, more than one fleet was pretty much a disaster when I showed up, and I feel like I did a really good job taking care of the assets for those people, and I think I can do the same thing with our city government. That's it. I can't hear you, Paul. Paul, you're muted.
Scott, is there any chat questions for Maurice? We'll get there, Maurice.
All right. All right. This is the actual first malfunction we've had.
Oh, we're good. Scott, are you there?
Yeah. Oops.
Oh,
yeah,
was there any chat questions for Maurice?
No questions yet.
All right, Maurice.
Come on, I can't be that smart. Y'all got to have some questions.
Well, I got a couple questions for you. I'll ask you the same. I wrote everything down because I'm trying to ask everybody the same thing, if you've been paying attention. And as I drive around town, we see houses going up everywhere, duplexes, triplexes, houses everywhere, all the lots filling up. When is enough enough?
Well, we certainly have some resource restrictions that, as we talked about last night, are pretty much going to put us a stop at 80,000 people. I'm probably going to be here when that happens. That's projected to be somewhere around 30 to 35 years from now. My lineage tells me that I could be here at that point. I honestly don't know when is enough is enough. And I hear people complaining all the time about, you're ruining my little town. I moved here because it was great. Well, I have to tell you, when I was born here in 1958, there were 5,000 people in this town. Carson City, on average, has doubled its population about every 10 years. And we certainly haven't been doing that through births. That's been from importing people. Just recently, right across the street from me, this little dinky 20-foot wide alley that you have to cooperate with one another to get past each other. They built a 8-unit apartment complex. So I'm certainly like to see it slow and steady. I like the way the city has put together their permit process, where they have a growth management plan. I like the way they are looking at keeping track of the projected water and sewer uses for every property that's developed, so that those can be put into a plan to trigger a new stoplight. So if I go and build a house or a group of houses, I pay into a fund that will eventually buy that stoplight when it's needed, so that it's not just the last guy coming in. They have a water rights allocation sort of thing that tells us as development goes along when it's going to be time to go start looking for more water. We do have the 80,000, enough water for 80,000 people, in particular when we get the Quill treatment plant back online. That's one of the things that, people complain about the water and sewer rates because they think, it's really the development that's driving up the locals' water and sewer rates. Well, that development isn't the whole problem. For me, I think, the way I look at it, I think a bigger problem and a bigger reason for the cost increases is the federal government keeps moving the standards around. We were fine here in Carson City until the federal government decided we had too much arsenic in the water. We were fine until they decided we had too much. It wasn't uranium. It's the stuff that comes from the granite. So that's why we had to go out and spend $30 million to bring water here from Minden. And I've been drinking this water my whole life. I still have my teeth. I'm not completely bald. I'm not gone crazy. So I'm not real sure why the federal government does that. And that's what happened with the Marlette water. The federal government changed the regulations, and that makes us have to go out and spend money. So I see that as a bigger driver than development, to be honest with you.
As you drive around town, you see a lot of empty commercial properties. I mean, we kind of listed off some of them the other night. Kmart, Ormsby House, every other business, it feels like, as you drive up 50 up towards your house and in the other direction. Kind of, what is your thought behind what we're going to do with all these empty commercial properties, and why are we have this deficit of commercial, retail and businesses versus the big blow up we're having with residential real estate?
Well, I think the residential real estate is really running off the hooks like it is because our residential pricing and our ability to build these entry-level homes is better than other communities. And so people are choosing to live here and travel somewhere else to work. They don't mind the commute. I've talked to people from LA that live in Topaz Ranch Estates, and they say, well, it's farther, but my time spent commuting is substantially less. So I don't care if I drive from TRE all the way to Reno. I think it's a little crazy, but I always commuted. Seemed like every time I lived in Gardnerville, I had a job in Carson. So I moved to Carson and get a job in Gardnerville. As far as the empty buildings, I certainly don't want to say anything disparaging about any of those property owners. But for instance, the Kmart area up there, that complex has never been anywhere near to capacity. I don't know why, but it certainly seems like that owner doesn't care if he fills his building up. And so he doesn't make it attractive to people coming in there. Now, as far as the Kmart building directly, the reason that is empty, unless something has changed in the last several months that I'm not aware of, of course, Kmart went out of business. Well, a fellow came over here from China. He had a giant bucket of money, and he was going around the country buying property. Well, he jumped into that one, apparently a little too early, didn't realize what he wasn't buying, and he had big plans. He was going to put a whole big indoor soccer fields and a arts thing with stage, and he was going to do all sort of things in there. And he found out he didn't own the parking lot, and he's not willing to put the money into that building. without owning the parking lot. So that's what's really going on there. As far as the other ones, like, the big one everybody wants to talk about is the Ormsby House. Frankly, I think there's some things that have gone on there in the past between the owners and the city that are going to make that an incredibly difficult property to develop. I know there's been some comments, actually from everybody, that contradicts one another. So I have to say, I don't know what the root bottom line problem is there, but it would certainly be nice to get in front of it. I'm glad they did finally bring the outside to completion and get the construction fences down. But I don't know what it takes to get the Ormsby House taken care of. I really don't.
I had a couple questions, Paul. So let's fire away. And then once I get these questions out of the way, Dan also has a question that I'll get to. So let's go with, what are your thoughts about road maintenance fee, like water, sewer, stormwater fees?
Well, again, I think the water fees are somewhat of a moving target and really not within complete control of our city government because of the feds. They do know that we have the utility oversight committee, and that is a group of people that has been appointed throughout our community that look at it's kind of folding into part of the asset management plan. They've looked at what's the condition of our facilities, what's the projected growth, what might be coming down the pipeline as far as changes in standards. And I think that's pretty well laid out. I can't sit here and recite that for you. Sewer and storm drain, I know is being worked on. The city is about to bring online a big storm drain study. That's another thing that I advocated for a long time. One of the specific things is the flooding that goes on in Carson City. The flooding coming out of Kings Canyon and Ash Canyon and rolling down off of those mountains over there has been happening since there was ever a town here. And it's still happening. Why? Why are we, in my opinion, spending extravagant money on some things and not addressing some of the very, very basic things that we want our city government to do? I think there was another element to that question, wasn't there, Scott?
Just what are your thoughts about a road maintenance fee, meaning probably roads may be needing repair. So how are you going to pay for road? Yeah.
Road maintenance. So I'll be honest. I don't think the city has done a good job in keeping up with the road maintenance. I think back in 1997, when the contract with INDOT was signed, telling Carson City that they had to take ownership and responsibility for a good number of the state roads here in Carson City, was an absolute mistake, because now Carson City has to pay for that. We weren't keeping up with the ones we had, and we took on miles and miles and miles of other roads. All that kind of being the history, the city truly is in a chase your tail situation. The city has put together a maintenance program. As you heard Lori talk about that last night, the funding doesn't get us anywhere near actually being a program that gets us to where we need to be. And so that's one of the things we need to keep working on. And that's going to be, we're probably going to have to make some really hard decisions about what programs we're going to do or not do, and how we're going to get the funding to take care of those roads. But I will tell you this also about our roads. And we hear complaints about roads on the east side. We hear complaints about roads on the west side. But I travel around this country pretty extensively. And I've traveled a lot in the last 4 years in between these campaigns, all the way from Galveston, Texas to the upper end of Connecticut, New York, into the Midwest, all up and down the West Coast. And I have to tell you, as much as you think our roads in this town are bad, they're better than most. They really are. They are better than most. And one that I would invite you to go visit, if you think the roads in Carson City are bad, you should take yourself down to Galveston, Texas, and look what's going on there. And those people have a ton of money. So, yes, roads need to be addressed. I don't think they are the complete disaster that a lot of people think they are. We do have a couple of disasters out there, but I wouldn't use disaster to describe our road system here in Carson City.
In terms of generating revenue, or what are your thoughts on offering businesses tax incentives to locate here to generate revenue?
I think that goes to one of the things I talk about, accessing the philosophies and principles of our founders. I do not believe that these tax incentives, like for Tesla and Faraday and the Raiders and Cabela's and Shields and on and on and on, are something that our founders would be happy we're doing. I'm not up for star bonds. I'm not up for the taxes. Look, provide the health and safety that the families want, and the businesses will come. I know we heard PK say, well, that's the game, that's the rules, you got to play. Well, I'm saying don't play that game. Tell the Raiders to stay in Oakland.
Okay. Another question. Would you advocate eliminating contract employees in the city as a cost control measure during this period of budget shortfall and going forward, so work is done by in-house staff?
No, is the bottom line. And there's several reasons for that. There are times when it is incredibly appropriate to have contract employees. The wage and benefit package of in-house employees is pretty damn high. Contract employees, we have the ability to bring them when we need them, send them home when we don't. Sometimes our staff doesn't have the expertise that we're looking for, so bring in a contract short term. Take care of this situation. Doesn't look like we're going to need you forever, so bring your expertise, fix us up, and go on. So I think it is always prudent to be looking in the budget to find these savings. And of course, where it's appropriate, a contract employee could be let go. I will tell you that the labor supplier, I think it's Ferion, we pay them a lot of money. And that is one thing I hadn't thought of before this particular interview, but I've looked at it before. The Ferion contract is pretty high, and I think we need to take a look at that. But across the board, get rid of contract employees? No, that's not something that's viable in my opinion.
What was the most successful project that you led and the reasons for your success?
I think beyond all of the projects that I operated at Douglas County School District when I was there, so that I was the lead mechanic for quite a while there. That was pretty gratifying, but I didn't have a lot of control on my own. That was kind of a things were passed down from the bosses, go do this. I did a good job of taking those pass downs and going out. The project that honestly I am the most proud of is when I worked for the company building engines for the electrical cogeneration company. Now, that company was based here. The company I worked for was based here in Carson City. We contracted a company here in Carson City that was a sublet of Hess Oil in the East Coast. The company was called Hess Microgen. So what we did was we had these big 22-liter V12 engines, diesel engines, that we converted to propane. There was an extensive amount of work within the valve system on those engines to make them successful. And when I came into the project, it did already exist, but it was in disarray. They were losing money, and it really wasn't viable. I put together a management process where literally from the ground up, I created all the paperwork that tracked each engine as it came in to our process and until it left being shipped out to the end user. I created the inventory management process and the parts room so that we knew what parts were going to be needed next month. We knew what was on hand because a lot of those parts had to come from Korea. There were no primary source suppliers here in America. So we had to know way ahead of time what we were going to be using. I put together the entire process of managing and documenting every procedure that took place on those engines from start to finish. That was a project that I was hired into that company to do, and I think it went well. They are still operating. However, the parent company, Hess Oil, has taken the entire operation, well, almost the entire operation, back to the East Coast. They're still doing a very small West Coast operation for those electric generation plants, but the primary valve work and head conversion that we developed here in Carson City is still being done here in Carson City.
Another question. What are your thoughts on opening Carson City from the COVID-19 situation?
Well, I think this whole situation is a basket of unknowns. We started with not even knowing what the COVID was. We had, in very short time, a myriad of so-called experts with white coats and stethoscopes running around contradicting one another. I feel like it was not completely unwarranted to take some pretty drastic steps because we didn't know what it was. We didn't have a treatment. We didn't have a cure. We didn't have a vaccine. We didn't have anything. So I'm not really all that disturbed about the actions that were taken, except that they were nonsensical, illogical, and inconsistent. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense that I can go to the grocery store, but I can't go golfing, can't go fishing in a state park. I just find that stuff to be kind of nonsense. Now, how are we going to open? I think slow and steady is the idea. I don't know. I'm not privy to all of the meetings, all of the information that is coming, you know, and as far as I'm concerned, because everything I hear in the media is contradicted by somebody else in the media, I don't think I know a damn thing. So I can't really have a recommendation on how to open or when to open.
Okay. So I got a three-part question. So 3 questions in one kind of thing. Will you support using city funds and working with the community to update the Carson City Master Plan adopted in 2006?
Well, certainly you're going to use city funds and city personnel to do a city master plan. I have advocated for some time that it was time to update the master plan, and has been some resistance to that. People that build those plans want their legacy to sit around for a longer period of time. But I feel like really so much has changed in the time that that plan was written to today. Things like the open space program, everything that was written into that master plan in regards to open space has been pretty much accomplished. That's why the open space master plan that I worked on with the city and the rest of the community in 2016 was put in place. So I think it's time to at least take a cursory look.
Okay, so let me ask the second part of the question. Would you support the continued property purchases in the open space program?
So the baseline answer to that is I truly believe that open space has accomplished the property acquisitions that the plan set out to do. I am in no way favorable to purchasing development rights for property, but I have to say that you can't just be arms crossed standing in the corner. You have to look at every agenda item that comes along. But I will say generally I'm not good for the purchasing development rights, and I think they've purchased enough property.
And the last question before I get to Dan, what would you do to support the Parks Department in repairing or replacing the park system's failing infrastructure, playgrounds, site amenities, asphalt trails?
Well, very, very simply, it's asset management plan. The asset management plan will do that. The hard part about creating this asset management plan is going to be the funding. So, we recently had a grand opening at Ross Gold Park down on the south end of town. Literally, that was probably one of the worst things the city has ever done to itself. When I became aware of the conditions at that park, I could not believe that it had been allowed to get to the point that it was, and we just simply cannot allow that again. If we're going to build these facilities, we have to fund their maintenance. We have to. It's not responsible to waste the taxpayers' money like was done at Ross Gold Park. So I will be an advocate for the parks, for getting funding for the parks. I don't know what that looks like because I have to tell you that COVID's thrown a monkey wrench into everything.
Yep. Dan, you've got your hand raised. So Dan, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, you hear me?
Yep,
Yes, sir.
good.
Okay, I got a couple things here. One thing you brought up, Morris, was a contract lobbying firm.
Right.
What exactly is that?
So there are two of them. They have one group here in Carson City. They work with the legislature to deliver the message that Carson City wants delivered to the legislature. Outside of that, looking at their billing, looking at what they do, there's not a lot of other things they do. Except that they do keep track of what's going on around us in a lot of ordinance changes, a lot of other projects that are going around, and they do from time to time when they find something important, they'll go find out more about it and alert the Board of Supervisors as to what's going on. Frankly, I really haven't seen them do very much outside of the legislature. The other firm is in Washington, D.C., and they deliver the Carson City message that the federal agencies that we need to deal with need to hear. I don't think they do really a whole lot, but they are there when we need them.
And that's all at the direction of the Board of Supervisors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's a couple small things here. This mandatory garbage pickup, is there anything that can be done with that?
Yeah. Put yourself together $60,000 and go sue the city and win. That's what it's going to take. But there isn't any reason to do that because the malfunctions within that contract are very easily adjusted and put the contract right back in place after you've had just a few months of relief from what I consider a contract that our founding fathers would not be happy about. That's the bottom line.
And one more small thing, if you could. There's been complaints about code enforcement, like, multiple cars parked in at residents with expired tags, commercial vehicles parked daily in residential areas. And I asked Lori the same thing, and she said that there's only 2 code enforcement officers to take care of the whole city. Is there anything we can do about that?
You know, I'm supposed to be a really smart guy and know everything there is to know because I'm running for office, but I have to tell you, you got the whole answer from Lori yesterday. Short of finding some funding and sending people out to go get involved in neighborhood arguments, you're going to get what you get. It's enforcement by complaint. So if your neighbor's bothering you, start complaining. It's a simple process when you go on the Carson Connect deal. So, I have to say, sorry if my answer seems a little short and abrupt, but I just don't have a whole lot to add to that. Lori answered the question, and I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thanks, Dan. We're coming close to the top of the hour, so Paul, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Before we leave, as you know, this is coming up. The question is, give me 3 good reasons why I should vote for you.
This really is the hardest part of the evening. I know this is about talking about what I want to do, what I think can happen. But those are actions that need to be taken. And this part comes to talk about me. I find it hard to talk about me. So first reason that you should vote for me is the people of Carson City have lost trust in their government. They really have. We had the downtown project that the people voted against. The name and some details were changed, and they built the project anyway. We had the margins tax that the people voted overwhelmingly against. The name and some details were changed, and they passed the commerce tax anyway. People in Carson City voted overwhelmingly to not have marijuana sales in this town, and we have them. So, I won't do that to you. If you're voting for something that really falls within what our founding fathers would be happy with us doing, I'm going to support what you vote on. Politicians like to say, trust me. Well, I'm not a politician. I'm a regular guy that has nothing more than his principles to live by. So I'm asking you to please put your trust in me by voting for me in this election for Ward 2 Supervisor. The second reason you should vote for me is I have nothing to gain from asking you to hire me. I understand our city government. I usually know the right questions to ask. I'm retired. I do not have a job that puts me in ethical conflicts with executing my duties as your supervisor. This is all about helping our community with a well-rounded, principled approach to constitutional governing. The third reason. So I said the first two were hard. This is really hard. It's become quite popular to ask candidates what they've done for the community. I do things in the volunteer world. I do things in the philanthropic world, and I don't do those for a pat on the back. But because it's popular to ask people what they've done, I'm going to go ahead and give you a list of the things that I have done. And again, please don't pat me on the back. Just understand that I find a place that there's a need, a place where I can help, and I do that. I am fiercely independent, and my supporters know that I cannot be purchased. I had the experience to collaborate with all manner of people to take action and accomplish good things for this community. Besides my very diverse 40-year career as a mechanic, here's the things that I've been involved with. 1991 to 95, I was the co-founder and board member for the Carson City Pop Warner and football and cheerleading. 91 to 95, I was a member of the Carson City Youth Sports Association. 96 to 04, I was a camera operator, control room technician, and producer at the nonprofit outdoor recreation TV show. 2008 to 15, I was a member of the Ormsby Sportsman Association. In 2010, I founded the Veterans Guest House Endowment Fund. 2010 to present, I am a member of the Community Foundation of Western Nevada Legacy Society. 13 to 17, I was a member of the Carson City Airport Authority Board. 2013 to 15, I was a member of the Sierra Nevada Forum Steering Committee. 2015 to present, I am on the board of directors for the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society. 2019 to present, I messed that up. I am on the Leadership Council of the Peregrine Fund. So that's what I do, I guess you'd say, in my private life. Now, as you all know, I've been pretty involved with the city, attending meetings and being on some of their committees and such. And what I've done with the city is this. I worked on the Open Space Master Plan, the Carson River Corridor Master Plan, the Arts and Culture Master Plan, Prison Hill Operations Plan, which is now being converted into a master plan. I worked on the current city 5-year strategic plan, which is currently being updated. I worked on the BLM Carson District Travel Master Plan. That's a lot of work, especially that BLM Travel Master Plan. I told you that was the hard part of this deal, but there's a harder part. One of the jobs I had was a salesman. Now, I didn't do too good at that. I actually quit that job before a very good friend of mine I was working for, that I had known since high school, was going to fire me because I'm a terrible, terrible salesman. But I have to do the salesman thing right now. I have to ask for your support in this campaign. I have to ask you to support me with more than your vote. I need your help. I need you to write letters to the editor. I need your help in fundraising. I need you to take a sign for your yard. I need you to organize your friends and neighbors so that we can have meetings just like this. I have purchased the Zoom program so that we can have Zoom meetings. And I need you to volunteer to work on the phone bank that I have put together. We're not doing robocalls. We're doing live people calls. I have to tell you, it's pretty interesting. It's very easy and it's fun to do. So if there's anything out there that you can help me with, advice, if that's what you want to give me, I would ask you to reach out to me to my shameless promotional plug right behind me, 775-297-6484. I'm on Facebook at Maurice for Ward 2, and my email is mauriceforward2@gmail.com.
Thank you, Maurice. That was a solid 57 minutes. So good job.